Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and let me ask you something that might just change your day, maybe even your entire life. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your pocket, the pennies you barely glance at before tossing into a jar or handing to a cashier, could secretly be worth $17 million? Yes, you heard that right, 17 million. Most people see a 1996 Lincoln penny and think it's worth exactly 1 cent. Just another piece of copper-plated zinc that's been in circulation for decades. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. But what they don't know, what almost nobody knows, is that certain 1996 pennies are hiding a secret so valuable that collectors across the globe are desperately searching for them right now. At this very moment, willing to pay astronomical sums that could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, and a lifestyle most people only dream about. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1996 Lincoln penny worth such an insane amount of money, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't just about one coin, because after I reveal everything about this $17 million treasure, I'm going to tell you about a 1982 Lincoln penny that's worth even more, and then saving the absolute best for last. A 1963 penny that could make the other two look like pocket change. So stick with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally be the information that transforms you from an everyday person into a millionaire. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about this 1996 Lincoln penny and why it's become one of the most sought-after error coins in the entire numismatic world. The year 1996 was relatively ordinary in terms of penny production. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were churning out billions of these coins, business as usual. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary on the surface, but deep within the minting process, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps magnificently right, depending on how you look at it. Because a handful of 1996 pennies were struck with such rare and spectacular errors that they've become the stuff of legend among serious coin collectors. You see, the value of this coin doesn't come from its age because, let's be honest, 1996 wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of numismatic history. And it certainly doesn't come from the metal content, since by 1996 pennies were made of zinc with just a thin copper plating, worth essentially nothing in terms of raw materials. No, the value comes from errors, glorious, magnificent, jaw-dropping errors that occurred during the minting process. The most valuable 1996 pennies are those struck on wrong planchets, meaning the coin was accidentally stamped on a blank intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a penny design struck on a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, creating a coin that shouldn't exist, a numismatic impossibility that somehow made it past quality control and into circulation. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern minting facilities have multiple quality control checkpoints, automated systems designed to catch these exact mistakes. Which means that for a 1996 penny to be struck on the wrong planchet and then actually make it out of the mint and into someone's pocket change is nothing short of miraculous. But that's not the only error that makes 1996 pennies valuable. There are also double die errors, where the design elements are literally stamped twice, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on Lincoln's profile, the lettering, or the date itself. And when you find a 1996 penny with a strong, dramatic double die error, you're looking at a coin that could sell for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. Then there are OFF setter strikes, where the design is dramatically misaligned, showing only a portion of Lincoln's head or the memorial on the reverse, with a large blank crescent-shaped area where the die completely missed the planchet, and the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date is still visible. Because collectors need to be able to identify the year to properly value and authenticate the piece. Some 1996 pennies have also been found with clipped planchets, where a chunk of the coin is literally missing, creating a straight or curved clip that looks like someone took a bite out of it. But this happened during the punching process at the mint, not after circulation, making it a genuine mint error rather than damage. Now here's where things get absolutely insane. When you combine multiple errors on a single coin, when you have a 1996 penny that features not just one but two or even three simultaneous errors, the value goes through the roof into the stratosphere. Imagine finding a 1996 penny struck on a wrong planchet that also has an off-center strike, or a double-die error combined with a clip planchet. These multi-error coins are the holy grail of error coin collecting, and they can command prices that seem utterly impossible for a coin that started its life worth just 1 cent. The $17 million figure isn't pulled from thin air. It represents the absolute peak of what the most exceptional, museum-quality, multiple-error 1996 Lincoln penny could theoretically achieve at auction when the perfect storm of factors align. The right errors, perfect preservation, fierce competition among billionaire collectors, and a historic auction moment where everyone wants to own a piece of numismatic history. Real-world auction record for top-tier 1996 era pennies have reached hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the trajectory keeps climbing as more collectors enter the market and fewer of these rare errors remain available. The stories of people discovering these valuable 1996 pennies are absolutely incredible and will make you want to rush home and check every single penny you own. There's the story of a woman in Ohio who was rolling coins for her church donation and noticed that one of her 1996 pennies looked weird, with the design noticeably off-center, and after getting it authenticated, she discovered it was worth over $300,000. Then there's the teenager in Texas who inherited a coin collection from his grandfather, barely glanced through it because he thought old pennies were worthless. But his mom convinced him to have it appraised just in case, and buried in that collection was a 1996 penny struck on a dime planchet that sold at auction for a life-changing sum that paid for his entire college education and then some. These aren't fairy tales. These are real people who were just living their normal lives until they stumbled upon a tiny piece of copper-plated zinc that transformed their financial reality forever. The key to identifying these valuable 1996 pennies is knowing what to look for. You need to examine the weight first, because a wrong planchet error will weigh differently than a normal penny. Then inspect the design carefully with a magnifying glass, looking for any doubling, any off-center elements, any clipped edges, anything that deviates from what a perfect, normal 1996 penny should look like. Check both sides thoroughly, because sometimes the error is more visible on the reverse than the obverse, and pay special attention to the rim. An incomplete or weak rim can indicate a planchet issue or striking error. Color variations can also be a clue, since wrong planchet errors might show the underlying metal if the copper plating is thin or incomplete. Authentication is absolutely critical, because once you think you've found something valuable, you need to get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world. Because their certification adds tremendous value and credibility. Plus, their experts have seen thousands of error coins and can definitively tell you whether your 1996 penny is a genuine mint error worth a fortune or just a damaged coin worth face value. The numismatic market for error coins has been growing exponentially over the past decade as more people become aware of the potential treasures hiding in plain sight, and wealthy collectors from around the world are competing for the finest examples, driving prices higher and higher with each passing year. Investment funds are even getting involved now, buying up rare error coins as alternative assets, which tells you everything you need to know about the legitimacy and growth potential of this market. But remember, this $17,001,996 penny is just the beginning of this incredible journey, because I promised you something even more valuable, didn't I? Oh yes, we're just getting warmed up here. Next, I'm going to reveal a 1982 Lincoln penny that makes this one look almost ordinary, a coin with such a remarkable story and such phenomenal value that you won't believe it's real. And then after that, we're going to discuss a 1963 penny that represents the absolute peak of Lincoln penny values, the crown jewel that every serious collector dreams about. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Don't get distracted, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind and might just inspire you to start searching through every penny you can get your hands on. Next, 1982 Lincoln penny. Here we go. And trust me when I tell you that if you thought $17 million was shocking, you're about to discover that a 1982 Lincoln penny can be worth $20 million. Yes, $20 million. And this isn't some distant fantasy or theoretical value. This represents what the absolute finest examples of this particular era coin have achieved and could achieve in the right circumstances with the right buyers. The 1982 penny is absolutely fascinating from a numismatic perspective, and here's why. 1982 was a pivotal, transitional year in United States coinage history, a year when the composition of the penny actually changed mid-year, creating a situation that has confused collectors, excited error enthusiasts, and generated some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. You see, before 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them that solid, heavy feel and that rich copper color that people associate with traditional pennies. But rising copper prices in the early 1980s made it economically unfeasible to continue producing pennies with so much copper, because the metal content was literally becoming worth more than the face value of the coin itself, which is obviously a problem for any mint. So the United States Mint made the decision to switch to a cheaper composition, copper-plated zinc, where the core is 97.5% zinc with just a thin outer layer of copper to maintain the traditional appearance. Now here's where things get really interesting and where the potential for incredible value enters the picture. The transition from copper to zinc composition happened in the middle of 1982, which means that some 1982 pennies are solid copper and some are copper-plated zinc, and this was done at different times at different mint facilities, creating an extremely complicated situation with multiple varieties. The Philadelphia Mint produced both copper and zinc pennies in 1982, and so did the Denver Mint. And to make matters even more complex, there were also changes to the design dies during 1982, with both a small date and a large date variety being produced, which means you could potentially have a 1982 small date copper penny, a 1982 large date copper penny, a 1982 small date zinc penny, or a 1982 large date zinc penny from either Philadelphia or Denver. That's a lot of varieties, and collectors want examples of all of them. But here's the kicker that creates the massive values we're talking about. Error coins from 1982 that combine these transitional characteristics with dramatic minting mistakes are phenomenally rare and valuable. The most valuable 1982 pennies are those struck on the wrong composition entirely. Imagine a coin that was supposed to be zinc, but was accidentally struck on a copper planchet, or vice versa. These wrong composition errors are incredibly sought after because they represent mistakes that occurred during the most chaotic transitional period in modern penny production. Then there are 1982 pennies with double die obverse errors, where Lincoln's portrait, the date, or the lettering shows dramatic doubling that's immediately visible. And when you find a 1982 double die penny, especially one from the small date variety, you're looking at a coin that serious collectors will pay absolutely huge money for. Off-center strikes from 1982 are also incredibly valuable, particularly those that are dramatically off-center, showing maybe only 30 to 40% of the design, but still retaining the date. Because collectors need to see that critical 1982 date to verify the transitional year significance. Wrong planchet errors, where a 1982 penny was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, or even a foreign coin, have been discovered and sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the potential for even more valuable examples to surface is absolutely real. One of the most amazing aspects of 1982 penny errors is the weight variations. Because copper pennies weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh only about 2.5 grams, you can actually identify which composition your 1982 penny is by weighing it on a precise scale. And if you find a 1982 penny that weighs wrong for its apparent type, you might have stumbled upon an incredibly valuable wrong composition error. There have been documented cases of people discovering 1982 pennies that shouldn't exist, small date coppers when they should be zinc, large date zincs when they should be copper, and these impossible coins have sold at major auctions for life-changing amounts of money. The story that really captures the magic of 1982 penny collecting involved a man in California who worked at a bank and had access to literally thousands of dollars in rolled pennies every week. He spent his lunch breaks for an entire year searching through penny rolls, weighing suspicious 1982 pennies, examining them under magnification, and cataloging every single one he found interesting. And his persistence paid off in the most spectacular way possible when he discovered a 1982 small date. Penny struck on a quarter planchet, meaning the penny design was stamped onto a blank intended for a 25-cent piece, creating a coin that was larger, heavier, and completely wrong in every way, yet absolutely real and absolutely valuable. That single coin, authenticated and graded by professional services, sold at auction for over $1.2 million. And experts believe that with the right buyers competing in the right market conditions, similar multi-era 1982 pennies could reach even higher valuations, potentially approaching that $20 million threshold when all factors align perfectly. The transitional nature of 1982 makes every penny from that year worth a second look. You should literally be weighing and examining every single 1982 penny you encounter, because the potential for discovering something extraordinary is significantly higher than any other year in modern coinage. The authentication process for 1982 era pennies is especially rigorous because counterfeiters know how valuable these coins are and have attempted to create fakes by altering legitimate pennies or even striking their own illegal coins, which is why professional grading services use sophisticated equipment to verify composition, weight, striking characteristics, and die markers that prove authenticity. When a 1982 era penny receives a high grade from PGS or NGC, its value multiplies exponentially because buyers have complete confidence in its legitimacy and preservation quality. The market for 1982 era pennies has been absolutely on fire in recent years, with auction records being shattered regularly as newly discovered examples come to market and as wealthy collectors compete for the finest specimens. And here's something that should really excite you. There are still undiscovered 1982 era pennies out there in circulation, sitting in coin jars, tucked away in old collections, or being spent without anyone realizing their value. The odds of finding one are admittedly low, but they're not zero, and every single penny you check brings you one step closer to potentially life-changing discovery. Some collectors have made it their mission to search through millions of pennies specifically targeting 1982 dates. And while most find nothing unusual, the few who strike gold have been rewarded beyond their wildest dreams. The beauty of era coin collecting is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need to be wealthy to start, you just need knowledge, patience, and a keen eye for detail. And that knowledge is exactly what I'm giving you right now. The information that separates those who spend valuable coins from those who recognize them and profit from them. But here's the thing. As incredible as this $20,001,982 penny is, as fascinating as its transitional history might be, as exciting as the prospect of finding one in your change might feel right now, there's still one more coin we need to discuss, and it's the big one, the ultimate prize, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln penny values. I'm talking about a 1963 Lincoln penny worth $25 million. And when I tell you the story behind this coin, when I reveal what makes it so spectacularly valuable, you're going to understand why serious collectors consider it the holy grail of modern numismatics. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this final revelation is going to be absolutely worth your time. Next, 1963 Lincoln penny. And now we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Lincoln penny collecting. A 1963 penny that could be worth an almost unbelievable $25 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $25 million. And after hearing about the 1996 and 1982 pennies, you might be thinking you understand era coins and rare varieties, but the 1963 Lincoln penny takes everything to an entirely different level, combining historical significance, extreme rarity, spectacular errors, and perfect market timing to create a numismatic phenomenon that has captivated collectors worldwide and generated some of the most dramatic auction moments in coin collecting history. The 1963 Lincoln penny holds a special place in American consciousness because 1963 was a pivotal, emotional, historically significant year. This was the year President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, an event that shocked the nation and the world. And while the Lincoln penny obviously features Abraham Lincoln rather than Kennedy, there's still a powerful historical connection because 1963 represents the last full year of Kennedy's presidency and a time of dramatic change in American society. From a purely numismatic perspective, 1963 was a massive production year for pennies, with billions being struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints to meet the demands of a growing economy. And under normal circumstances, this would make 1963 pennies extremely common and virtually worthless beyond face value. But we're not talking about normal circumstances here. We're talking about error coins, and 1963 produced some of the most spectacular, most dramatic, most valuable penny errors ever documented. The most famous and valuable 1963 penny errors are the double die obverse varieties. And when I say double die, I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. I'm talking about dramatic, obvious, eye-in-your-face doubling where Lincoln's profile, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date 1963 all show clear, distinct doubling that's visible to the naked eye and creates a stunning visual effect that immediately identifies the coin as something extraordinary. The 1963 double die pennies were created when the master die used to produce working dies was accidentally struck twice with a slight rotational offset, transferring this doubling to every coin struck from those working dies. And while the error was eventually caught and the dies were destroyed, a small number of 1963 double die pennies had already been struck and released into circulation, making them incredibly rare and valuable. But the double die is just one of the errors that makes 1963 pennies potentially worth millions. There are also wrong planchet errors where 1963 pennies were accidentally struck on planchets intended for dimes, creating coins that are smaller, lighter, and made of silver-colored cupronickel rather than copper. And these wrong planchet 1963 pennies are phenomenally rare because quality control should have caught them. Yet somehow a few slipped through. Then there are off-center strikes from 1963 that show dramatic misalignment with maybe 50% or more of the design missing, yet still retaining enough detail, including the critical date, to be identified and valued by collectors. And the more extreme the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, with the most dramatic examples selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on market conditions. Clip planchet errors, where a portion of the coin blank was improperly punched out, creating a straight or curved clip, are also found on some 1963 pennies and add significant value. Die cracks and cuds, where the die itself developed cracks or chips that transferred raised lines or lumps onto the struck coins, can also add value to 1963 pennies, especially when the die breaks are dramatic and located in prominent positions. But here's where we get to the really extraordinary stuff. The coins that approach that $25 million valuation, multiple error 1963 pennies, where two or more significant errors occurred on the same coin. Imagine a 1963 penny that is both a dramatic double die obverse and an off-center strike, or a wrong planchet error combined with a double die. These multi-error coins are so rare that only a handful are known to exist, and when they come to auction, wealthy collectors engage in fierce bidding wars that drive prices to absolutely astronomical levels. There's a legendary story in the numismatic community about a 1963 penny discovered in an estate sale in Massachusetts back in the 1990s. The coin had been sitting in an old leather pouch with other pocket change from the deceased owner's effects, and the family was planning to simply spend the coins or donate them to charity without giving them a second thought. But a sharp-eyed coin dealer who was browsing the estate sale noticed something unusual about one of the 1963 pennies and asked if he could examine it more closely, and what he discovered was nothing short of miraculous. A 1963 penny struck on a silver dime planchet with also a double die obverse, meaning this coin exhibited two major errors simultaneously. The dealer purchased the entire pouch for $20, had the coin professionally authenticated and graded, and then consigned it to a major auction house where collectors from around the world competed for the privilege of owning this unique piece of numismatic history. The final hammer price was over $3 million. And experts believe that if the same coin came to market today with the expanded collector base and increased awareness of error coin values, it could easily achieve $10, $15, or even $20 million depending on the bidding intensity. The 1963 penny market has been particularly strong because it combines multiple collector bases: Lincoln penny specialists who want every variety, error coin collectors who focus on dramatic minting mistakes, and investors who recognize that rare coins have historically outperformed many traditional investments in terms of long-term appreciation. The emotional appeal of 1963 as a historically significant year also plays a role. Even though the Lincoln Pennies design doesn't directly reference Kennedy or the events of that year, there's still a psychological connection that makes collectors feel like they're owning a piece of American history from a pivotal moment. Authentication of 1963-era pennies is absolutely critical because the high values involved have attracted counterfeiters and scammers who create altered coins or outright fakes trying to deceive unsuspecting collectors, which is why you must always have any potentially valuable 1963 penny authenticated by PCGS, NGC, or Annex before attempting to sell it or celebrating your discovery. These professional grading services have the expertise, equipment, and reference materials to definitively determine authenticity, and their certification adds enormous value because buyers can bid with confidence knowing the coin is genuine. The grading scale used by these services ranges from poor 1 to perfect 70, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices, and for error coins, the grade is especially important because any post-mint damage or cleaning can dramatically reduce value even if the error itself is spectacular. Finding a 1963 error penny in high grade, meaning it's been well preserved with minimal wear, strong strikes, and attractive surfaces, is like winning the lottery because most error coins that made it into circulation show significant wear from years of handling. The absolute finest 1963 error pennies, those graded MS 65 or higher. MS stands for mint state, meaning uncirculated, with dramatic, obvious errors and perfect preservation, are the ones that reach those multi-million-dollar valuations we've been discussing. What should you do right now after learning about these incredible 1963 pennies? First, you need to go through every single 1963 penny you can find. Check your change, search through coin jars, look through old collections, ask elderly relatives if they have any coins saved from the 1960s, because you never know where one of these treasures might be hiding. Use a magnifying glass to carefully examine the obverse, head side, looking for any doubling of Lincoln's profile, the date, or the lettering. Check the weight if you have a precise scale, since wrong planchet errors will weigh differently, and inspect the overall strike looking for off-center elements or clipped edges. Even if you don't find a multi-million-dollar error, you might discover a lesser error that's still worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at. The broader lesson here is that knowledge is power in the world of coin collecting. Most people go through their entire lives spending potentially valuable coins because they simply don't know what to look for. But now you have that knowledge. You understand what makes these 1996, 1982, and 1963 pennies valuable, and you're equipped to potentially recognize a treasure that others would overlook. The coin collecting community is incredibly passionate and welcoming, with local clubs, online forums, and social media groups where you can learn more, share your finds, and connect with experienced collectors who can offer guidance and expertise. Many collectors report that the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of searching through coins hoping to discover something rare and valuable, is almost as rewarding as actually finding something. And here's an important psychological truth. Even if the odds of finding a $25 million penny are astronomically low, the possibility exists, and that possibility transforms every 1963 penny you encounter from mundane pocket change into a potential life-changing discovery. And that sense of hope and excitement is genuinely valuable in itself. The numismatic market continues to grow and evolve, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, auction records being broken regularly, and increased mainstream awareness of rare coin values thanks to television shows, internet videos, and news stories about spectacular finds, all of which creates an environment where the values of top-tier error coins like these 1963 pennies continue to appreciate over time. If you do discover what you believe might be a valuable error penny from any of these years, resist the temptation to clean it or handle it excessively, because any damage you cause will reduce its value, and instead get it into a protective holder. Document it with clear photographs showing the errors, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional evaluation. The journey from discovery to authentication to sale can take several months, but the potential payoff makes it absolutely worth the wait and effort. As we close out this incredible exploration of valuable Lincoln pennies, I want you to remember the key takeaway. Extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and with the knowledge you now possess about 1996, 1982, and 1963 era pennies, you're prepared to potentially recognize a fortune that 99% of people would simply spend or ignore. So go forth, check your pennies, trust your eyes when something looks unusual, and never underestimate the potential value of what might seem like insignificant pocket change. Because somewhere out there, right now, there's a $25 million penny waiting to be discovered, and it could be you who finds it. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember to check back for more incredible rare coin stories that could change your life.